success looks different for everybody in different businesses, different locations, but it's finding out what success would mean to me, to you, to anybody doing this. Where do we need to be to justify the investment, to recognize the return on investment generated from this campaign?
Folks, here it is. We have reached the end of season 1, episode number 7 of the In Focus podcast, where my goal has been to help you establish a clear vision and strategy for marketing and branding your agriculture business through video. I am your host, Austin Black, and I am so glad to have you join me as we wrap up season 1 of this podcast and discussing these 7 steps talked about in our video strategy workshop. Hopefully you have gone through this process from episode number 1 all the way to now. If this is the first episode you're listening to, you need to go back and listen to episode number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in that order. Follow the pattern we are discussing. Create that foundation for your video production, for your brand, to create a solid foundation and outline for marketing your company. I don't want you to be one of those companies that produces a video without a plan, without a strategy, and suffers the consequences thereof. So my goal through this podcast is to help you create that plan that accomplishes your goal, establishes the criteria that you need to know to make a successful campaign. Folks, as we wrap up season number 1, this episode is going to feature Chris Engel as we talk about how to measure the success in the analytics of your campaign. You've done everything up till now. You have everything prepared and ready to go out the door. You know who you're targeting, what you want to tell them, where you want to showcase your video. Now is when we really determine if our plan was successful, if our strategy was accurate, and how we can succeed next time as well. We're going to talk about ways to manage and measure the success of your campaign, or understand if it didn't quite perform the way that we would have liked. Chris brings some awesome insights, some wonderful tidbits of information from his years of experience as a marketing manager in some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the agriculture industry. I am so glad to have Chris on today as he shares insight into how we can specifically measure the success of our marketing campaign. Folks, let's jump right into my interview with Chris Engel. Folks, welcome to the In Focus podcast. I am here with my friend Chris Engel. Chris is the food animal marketing integrator manager at Bimeda, a global manufacturer, marketer, and distributor of animal health products and veterinary pharmaceuticals. Chris currently lives in Smithville, Missouri with his wife Abby and their 7-month-old daughter, Zona Josephine. Prior to joining Bimeda, Chris held positions at the American Angus Association as the director of their feeder calf program, Angus Link, and as a product manager for Merck Animal Health, where he was in charge of the U.S. cattle vaccine portfolio. Chris, I know you've done a lot in the marketing world and especially the agriculture side, and I'm so glad to have you on today's podcast. Welcome to In Focus.
Thank you for having me, Austin. I've been looking forward to this and excited to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, as we are wrapping up the first season with this episode, looking at measuring the analytics of your campaign. That's kind of the final stop in this process of video strategy, is measuring how well our campaign was doing. But before we get into that, why don't you take a few minutes and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about Bimeda, and help us get to know what you got going on out there.
Yeah, so thank you, Austin. I mean, I started with Bimeda just about 10 weeks ago. 7 of the 10 weeks I've been traveling. One of the week was Christmas. So I'm still trying to figure out what we're all about. But we're a large distributor, global distributor of animal pharmaceutical products, and I'm tasked with managing all the food animal products. We just acquired a vaccine company down in San Angelo, Texas Vet Labs, which kind of suited me and my background and got me interested in this role. Primarily, Bimeda in the U.S. has been a large provider and manufacturer of private label products product for distribution across all species, but we're now kind of entering down the pathway of establishing our brand and increasing awareness of our brand with our target audiences in any given species, which is fun for a marketer. We have a really great story that has a really great story, and we want to project that story nationally across species to try to build relationships and provide solutions for folks that may or may not, that may need it and might not know it necessarily, that there's options out there, but just making sure they're out there, educate them, inform them, and hopefully be able to provide them some value. So it's a blank slate on the food animal side with Biomeda. Learned a lot in some of my previous steps and roles, and I'm excited to kind of get kicking and get started. And I'm treading water right now, but it's getting pretty high. But I've got a couple weeks at the office, so we'll get things knocked out. But in terms of market and a marketing campaign, I think there's a huge benefit to it. As a manager of anything, you need to effectively manage your resources, be it time, people, data, or knowledge, and money. And while people still buy from people, having a whole cast of salespeople isn't necessarily the reality for a lot of folks. And you need to try to cast a wider net to get your brand, your message out there to folks. And digital strategy, video is a really good tool to do that. And I've had some success with it in the past. And I was told once, there's an easy way to learn something, a hard way. The easy way is to learn from somebody else's mistakes. The hard way is to make the mistakes yourself. And I've done a little bit of both, but excited to kind of apply what I've learned here at Biomeda.
So you've been a part of a few different companies, and you're not very old. You're about my age. So tell us just real quick, more about your marketing experience and what opportunities you've had while you've been in the industry.
Yeah. So I guess my first opportunity in marketing, Austin, was when I was with Merck Animal Health as a territory manager for cattle in the Southeast. And I got promoted into marketing, came to DeSoto, their U.S. headquarters for food animal. And it was kind of a bridge or a developmental role, if you will. I had a product portfolio that was pretty stable, have been there for a long time, and that was Merck Animal Health's grass implants, Revlor G and Ralgrow, and also their fly tags and pour-on fly control. And so I did that for a little bit, tried to learn marketing. I'm not a classically trained marketer, but I really have found that taking advantage of opportunities to be developed professionally has been really good, and I like learning something every day. Did that role for a little while, and then had the opportunity to get a new suite of products at Merck Animal Health. So I was in charge of all the cattle vaccines in the U.S., and that was a great experience for me. I always enjoyed selling vaccines, and to me, vaccines are awesome. There's an art to making them. There's an art to putting them in the right place and the right protocol to gain prevention, which we all know there's trends in food animal production going to prevention instead of treatment. And if you can get that right, you can save a whole lot of money and heartache and sleepless nights. And then I had the opportunity to go to the American Angus Association to launch their new feeder cattle program, which is called Angus Link. And that was definitely the different side of the spectrum from Merck Animal Health, going to the Angus Association. I got to work for really great people, with really great people, and to a marketer, kind of having a blank slate and being able to build something is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot of lessons doing that, made a lot of good contacts doing that, and then changed things up a little bit and had the opportunity to kind of get a whole U.S. managerial role with a really big portfolio with Biomeda. And that acquisition of Texas Vet Labs was kind of the cherry on top, because I wanted to get back to that vaccine side. And Texas Vet Labs has such a great story. I'm really looking forward to helping them kind of promote that message and inform people about it that might not have known about it otherwise, because it has been very regionally focused down there in Texas and the Panhandle area.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, as we're looking at this step in the process of measuring the success of your marketing, how important is that concept when it comes to a marketing campaign? And of course, today we're talking specifically on video, but with video or just generally in marketing, how important is it to make sure that you are measuring your success of that campaign?
It's critically important, to be able to successfully manage something, you really need to be able to measure it too. And in a lot of the roles I've held, I've been given a promotion and advertising budget, and a large spend is going to be dedicated. A large percentage of it should be dedicated to these marketing campaigns that integrate digital and video components. And when the boss or your boss's boss asks you how it's going and to justify the investment, you need to be able to do that. But not only is this just kind of save yourself, you want to know how it's doing. And there's so many
Hmm.
things in the digital space and video space that once you make the investment, the lion's share of the dollars spent is already done, and you can make minor adjustments through measuring key performance indicators to make adjustments and to optimize the strategy, if you will, or the executed tactics.
Hmm.
And just slight modifications, whether you're putting it in a new place or cutting down the video time or where you're putting it, um, could really make your measurements go through the roof and help you meet or exceed your goals or expectations for it. So measurement, you got to measure it, good, bad, indifferent. If you're too stubborn to not learn and go with your way, you might not want to do it. But
Right.
if you really want to know how it's doing, you're committed to meeting your goals and getting your message to the right people, you need to be able to measure things to do that. So there's a couple things that I've looked at in the past, but really the whole process is, my recommendation is up front, you want to know what your goals are.
Hmm.
You want to know what your goals are. You want to know where you're going to put it. You want to know where you're going to measure it. And then it's about analyzing what you get back from a measurement standpoint, having a constant relationship with your consultant, agency, whomever you're using, who oftentimes can take a lion's share of that um, monitoring off your plate, but then really utilizing those results to optimize it. And then when you're done with that campaign, see what you learned, see what you want to do in the future, what you don't
Hmm.
want to do in the future, and get ready for the next one.
So I love you kind of brought up a topic that I don't think is really discussed very often, and that's the KPI. Um, if there's some folks here who aren't listening, real quickly explain what a KPI is.
KPIs are key performance indicators, and they're basically different measurements you can look at that help you measure the relative effectiveness of your video strategy and certain aspects that relate to your ultimate goal or objective, which you should definitely write out before you get started with a video marketing campaign or digital marketing campaign or any marketing campaign. What's your goal? Uh, and then you identify ways you can measure it to see if it's successful or not successful.
So, thinking back over some of the campaigns that you've been a part of or kind of led throughout your career, what are some of the biggest KPIs that you have put a focus on or that you have measured consistently throughout your campaigns?
Yeah, there's probably a multitude out there, and that's pretty cool. The digital space has evolved a lot over the past few years, but kind of depending on what my goals are, um, you want to look at video engagement, which is basically looking at how long people are viewing your video or watch time, and that's typically presented in a percent of the total play. So
Hmm.
if it's a 90-second video, you can see somebody viewed it for 45 seconds, somebody viewed it for all 90 seconds, and then there's typically an average engagement percentage for all viewers. And so depending on what type of video you're using, whether it's an informative video posted on your website, they'll get some sort of value no matter how long they watched it. But if it's more of a call to action video where you're asking them to take another step, it's really important that they're watching the whole video. So you want that engagement metric to be high.
Hmm.
I look at rate of play. Typically, unless it's one of those videos that automatically starts playing as somebody scrolls. People need to click the video to play it, and that's them saying that they're interested in what the thumbnail looks like. So seeing how many times people actually engage with it and clicked on it would be rate of play. View count, you look at, it's probably the most simple, but it's important. How many people, individual people, have viewed your video. One thing you need to be careful about when you're looking at view count as a KPI is, depending on what platform you put the video on, they call a complete view different. Maybe if somebody watches it for 3 whole seconds, that's a view. On some platforms, it's 2/3 of the video is a view.
Right.
Some, it's the whole video is a view. So you need to be careful there. I look through click-throughs, if there was a call to action, if they went to a individual website or a special website that I had set up for it, or hit contact me, or I want to be on this list. Social media shares is another way that I've viewed in the past. And then video conversion rates is probably the hardest to measure, but a couple of the places that I used to be, we had a CRM tool that would help that. Depending on what business you're in, what products, or what distribution model, could be a little hairier. But ultimately, it's how many people viewed your videos, how many of them became leads, went from leads to kind of being a prospect, and then ultimately to a customer would be kind of a conversion spectrum. Those are the ones that I've used, again, depending on what kind of video it was.
So kind of take that in and dive a little bit more specific for us, because there's a lot of different measurements there, and you just said it kind of depends upon what the video is supposed to do, what the campaign is geared toward, as far as what you're going to focus on. So break that down a little bit for me, both in terms of marketing video versus branding video, and then any other distinguishing factors that dictates what focus you put on those KPIs.
Sure. So in my mind, Austin, branding is kind of who you are. It's who you are, and it's kind of really the overarching strategy, your brand. It people to connect to you. It makes you unique. It builds in loyalty. So as I'm to have a video campaign in terms of branding, I'm really interested in raising awareness. So if raising awareness is my goal, I want to look at some of the metrics I mentioned: video engagement, views, shares. Those would be some of the important metrics I would want to see. Basically, it's showing me, how many people are seeing this. If they're sharing it, they're deriving value from it. Views, I think, should be higher. You try multiple platforms to try to get it to spike. And then for more of a marketing, which is more tactical execution, how you drive attention to your products so people can engage with your brand. It's more of a call to action type of video, where you're asking the viewer to take a step. And that's when I want to look at things like rate of play. Depending on where that call to action is of the video, you could look at the click-throughs. They're saying, yes, I want to learn more. Yes, I want to go to the website. Yes, I want you to contact me. And even the conversion rate, that becomes when asking them to you want to measure how many of them took action, and ultimately see how that had turned into you driving your business forward.
Does it depend upon even where that video is situated? For example, if you've got a video that you're just going to put on a website, are you going to have different measurements that you're looking at with that compared to something that you might run on a more digital or social platform?
Sure, absolutely. When things are on your website, I think you'd want to see views. You would want to see total impressions is another metric that you can get access to. And then even when people are taking your video from your website and sharing it on social media because they thought so much of it, they found value from it, then you'd want to kind of keep track of those shares and comments on there to see how that's supporting your strategy. And then you really, another kind of whole aspect that comes from when you put a video on your website is how are you going to drive traffic to get onto your website to see that video. And I think the key word in this whole series, Austin, is it's a marketing campaign. That means, in my mind, multi-touch, multimedia, places, everything. You're trying to use your content in different places, in the way that people want to see it, at the time people want to see it, so you can drive traffic to your website so they can learn more about you and you can differentiate from the others. Competitors that are out there is what I meant by others.
Yeah. So as you're looking at different campaign styles, different types of video, different KPIs, what are the benchmarks that you kind of put on those? How do you know if that KPI, if the information that came from it was really successful, maybe just accomplished the job, or maybe didn't really do what you wanted to? How are you benchmarking the performance of those campaigns?
So sometimes that's could be harder. And again, it goes back to what your goal is. If it's awareness, you want to reach as many people as you can. You could use some of the previous things you've done to kind of benchmark the success of that campaign. Or there's industry benchmarks that you could look at. Typically, when you advertise on a website with maybe a small digital ad to drive them to your website, they'll have average click-throughs and kind of engagement rates. So you can kind of measure yourself up against the average, if you will. And then, goals I think are measurable. So you want to have an idea going into it, how much you want to how many click-throughs you want. If you want to be above average, you can work with a consultant or an agency that helps you put it all together to really figure out what you're trying to hit.
So there's probably, even if you've got the right measurement components in there, I'm sure there's probably different elements and factors that even within the same video or same kind of video in the same audience can make that number kind of swing, back and forth a little bit. Whenever you're looking at a campaign, do you do any testing to determine what is really working well, or to measure how this is compared to other similar campaigns on similar audiences?
Sure, and experience helps there. And if you don't have the experience yourself, if I hadn't done campaigns in the past, I would really rely heavily on a consultant or an agency to help steer that. And again, you're making the investment up front to collect the content. Hopefully you're taking that content and developing as many assets across different mediums as you can, whether it's print, whether it's digital, whether it's video. That's really invaluable stuff. And that's the fun of it, I think, Austin. Not only dreaming up the whole thing, but seeing it as it's working and then measuring as you go, getting that FaceTime with your consultant, strategizing how you're going to make adjustments. And then you could literally watch the spike overnight, if this is working, if this isn't working. And I've had access to some kind of technologies that could even heat map your website to show of the people that come to your website where they're most often going, where they're kind of looking, where their mouse is going. So you could really play with the positioning even of a thumbnail for a video or an ad or whatever within your own website to try to optimize that placement. And it comes down to simple things, really. It's what's the thumbnail picture? What's the title? What's the descriptive text? What's the positioning? How are you baiting people into it, if you will, to drive traffic? All of those things can be measured through kind of KPI analytics, and the fun of it's adjusting.
So as you're adjusting campaigns to experiment, see what's going to work, what's not, try to get that perfect video, or even just the same video and get people to click on it more. How long or how much time do you spend on making those tweaks, making those adjustments, and trying to increase that before you decide that you either have done the best you can or it's not going to work. It's not a great campaign to begin with. How far do you go on each spectrum?
Yeah, and hopefully through kind of that process of maybe wanting to do a video campaign, realizing your goals, where you're going to place it. You didn't pull things out of air yet. Maybe had somebody with experience to help you with that, but you've made the lion's share of the investment when the video camera's turned on, and then a lot of the different content or assets you generate from that is small amount of dollars spent or time spent in comparison to dreaming up the idea,
Mm-hmm.
strategizing, going to get the film, and making the main assets. So it's just a matter of how tough you are, really, because if you dreamt it up, you think it's going to work, you have a basis for thinking it's going to work. That's not anecdotal. That's not totally specific to you, what you want to see, but it's
Mm-hmm.
what your really target audience wants to see. Those adjustments don't take very much time, but having kind of frequent consultations with whomever you're working with is important to change it. And now, you know, if it doesn't work, maybe that attempt you might have learned the hard way, learned yourself, but hopefully you kind of learn through other people's mistakes leading it to it. And I can certainly share some of those, but I think there's books written on companies that were so close to hitting their goals, but couldn't stand the time or the investment anymore and backed out. There are books written on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're way closer than you think. And my biggest advice is if you set it up with some help, there's strategy, concrete strategy behind it. You're able to measure according to your goals. Keep your foot down on the gas pedal, knowing that the lion's share of that investment is behind you. Um, and you don't want to quit, especially if it's your own dollars coming out of your pocket, or if your boss's boss is going to be coming knocking on your door saying,
Mm-hmm.
"What'd you get out of this?"
Right.
Um, Sometimes it's just those little tweaks that can really um, kind of take you from 15 views to 15,000 views in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Put them in the right place at the right time.
Folks, I'm going to give you one more chance. If you're interested in getting your custom designed and built outline for your business, for your brand, then sign up today for a video strategy workshop. Remember, this is a one-on-one meeting, a private meeting with you and your marketing team to discuss your business, your marketing, your goals, and your budget to determine exactly how you can implement video into your business. After the workshop, you're going to get this customized, well laid out, thoroughly thought through template that shows you exactly how to implement video marketing and branding into your business and into your brand. Give you step-by-step instructions so that you know when you start that production, it will be successful. For more information about the strategy workshop or to book your private session today, then visit backroad-productions.com/workshop. Okay, so speak a little bit to that concept that you just mentioned there, where you've already put the money forth, you've already got the campaign ready to go. There's really not much more you can do to it once it's out there to make it successful. So how do you determine if it's not doing the right job, it's time to cut it and scratch it over, or how do you determine when it has done its job and now it's time for a refresh?
Yeah, so certainly it kind of can tie back to those goals. If your goals are um, you want 50 more seats filled at your bowl sale coming up, I would push that thing until the 10 a.m. when the bowl sale starts at 10:15 a.m. to try to get butts in that seat. And what's cool about KPIs, when you track kind of the progression, you can know if you're sitting, um, active bidders there, just kind of through talking to your team, whoever's checking in people, giving big numbers, and also just who you're feeding to, which,
Mm-hmm.
we all know everybody shows up for sale day. But I'd push till the end. And there's some bigger campaigns that are over multiple years, but before you mothball it, before you put it up on the shelf, before you quit on it, I really would suggest that you just try a couple more places, um, whether it's been on your website, whether it's been on your Facebook page, maybe you can try Twitter or try Instagram or try some different professional websites with kind of digital ads to drive that traffic. Mm-hmm. And reposting. I mean, it's the time. Regardless of what you're doing, you want to put the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And in previous roles, it took me a while to understand this, but in today's world, I think 45% of people are watching videos on their phone. There's more content available to folks than ever before. At Bimeda, my competition is not another animal health manufacturer. Really, it's everybody that's competing to occupy brain space of my target audience's head. Yeah. So whether you play it at 7 a.m. or 9 a.m., when you kind of make a blitz to push traffic, could be the difference between yes and no. It could be 7:02 and 7:05. It's those little things. And I just strongly suggest before you mothball it, you just try to spin it a little bit of a different way, put it in a different place at a different time, and keep at it. When is it done? If you have that goal kind of strictly determined by a calendar year or by a sale date, that's kind of when you finalize the campaign. You see in totality how it ended up, the summary of it all. Have conversations with who you worked with, have conversations with your peers to try to learn through them and get ready for next time. But I know how conversations go, trying to convince somebody to try this video marketing thing that maybe has done classic print in the past, and it's different. And it could be more dollars, it could be less dollars. Could be, people aren't on Facebook, so they don't see the benefit of it. Right. But explore, do diligence and explore. It's amazing kind of the ability you have to cast a large net with digital in today's world, and specifically video. People are buying from people. You need to share your message, your strengths, what makes you unique, so that you can differentiate from the competition. And ultimately, you're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. You really believe in what you have, and you think that it's a great solution for folks. It's just a matter of making sure they know who you are, what it is, and you can really help them and be successful as well.
So in your years, with excuse me, with Merck and now with Bimeda, I'm sure a lot of the campaigns you've probably been a part of have been focused towards a product or toward a specific goal, specific intention. Do you have a timeline or a window that you want to really push that product, push that campaign, generate sales from that? Or do you just put together the best piece that you can come up with and then run it until it's run its course, whenever that may be?
Yeah. So, you have an understanding of kind of a product life cycle, no matter what product it is kind of pertinent to, making these campaigns. It's whether you're trying to introduce a product. When you're launching a product, you want to make as much awareness as you possibly can. When it goes from introductory to the growth stage, you want to keep on driving awareness, but you also want to get more agility, really make sure it's getting to the right person. And then when you're phasing out, you don't want to invest as much. Hopefully, with your initial investment in the beginning for that introductory phase, you also captured content that can be utilized throughout the life cycle of any given product later on, based on what your goals are. Just repurpose it. It's cheaper that way. And ultimately, when the service, whenever it's done, you move on to the next one or to the next phase.
So you pretty much know about how long you expect that campaign to perform and to generate revenue or performance for you before you actually produce it. Then, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's part of that goals. With goals, you want them again to be measurable, and
Mm-hmm.
you want them to be on a given timetable, whether that's a month, whether that's 15 days, whether it's 3 years or 10 years. You have an idea of how long you're going to be wanting to use this. When I was at Merck, we did a campaign for some of the vaccines, and I just knew we could probably repurpose it and use it for 2 to 3 years, and then we would need a total refresh, just
Mm-hmm.
because we'd be utilizing that content across multiple mediums and different platforms, and, and it'd be on a magazine that people would just turn over because their eyes have already seen it before, and
Yeah.
they don't read it anymore. So you want to refresh to catch the attention, or if you're kind of maybe product has changed, or um, your brand shouldn't really change because that's really who you are. But as your marketing activities change, it might be time to refresh the campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and go again. So if it's success is all relative
Yeah.
to what your goals are. Success looks different for everybody in different businesses, different locations, but it's finding out what success would mean to me, to you, to anybody doing
Mm-hmm.
this. Where do we need to be to justify the investment, to recognize the return on investment generated from this campaign?
So, with that said, let's take a little trip down memory lane and walk me through one of your most successful campaigns and explain what made it successful for you.
Sure. I think it all hinges on the word campaign. And campaign, again, it's multi-touch, multi-platform, multi-medium. It's not a one and done. So some of
Mm-hmm.
the most successful campaign was uh, when I was in charge of a certain set of products. We took one product, we went around the country, we collected testimonial video in different regions, in different segments of the industry. We had really good testimonial pieces that could be in videos, and those videos, there's a 15-second cut to put on like an advertisement when you're watching a YouTube video. There's a
Mm-hmm.
30-second cut that maybe we embedded into emails. There's 60, there's 90, there's full length cuts that would be housed on the website. And then there's print ads that come from that. There's direct mail pieces. There's emails that can come from it. But it was a campaign with KPIs in place. And those were where I was really trying to drive brand awareness, increase awareness of this product. So I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I was looking for engagement. I was looking through click throughs, depending on what kind of tactic in the strategy we were covering,
Mm-hmm.
but really just to be able to measure the effectiveness of the campaign, how many people were seeing, how big that net was. We made some adjustments to it and placed it in different places, and it was like a kick of life, a shot in the arm. But it was, again, a campaign. There's
Mm-hmm.
multiple pieces. It's over a length of time, and it's kind of that no quit attitude, because you can, again, when you make that initial investment, there's a lot you can do with that content to help you get that message in front of the right person. So that was something that was great to me, and you could see conversion, you could see sales increase, because it was such a great story that just needed to be shared. And
Mm-hmm.
so when somebody can hear one of your customers, one of my customers, share their experience with the product and give their testimonial, sometimes it's a lot more effective than a print advertising
Right.
piece that I created myself. It's kind of tried and true, real field based, real. This is reality, and those are huge in today's world. I mean, you look at leaders in the industry; they're pretty good storytellers too. You look at
Mm-hmm.
past presidents, you look at all the business titans out there, regardless of the industry. They're really good storytellers, and you can't see everybody, no matter how big your sales force is. If you got 10,000, if you're an army of one, you can't turn over every rock. You can't see everybody. But digital campaigns and video really allow you to tell your story, to get people to buy into your story. And you need to back that story up for sure. but you could really turn some viewers into leads, into customers,
Mm-hmm.
short term and long term, and form some really great relationships.
So as you were looking at that campaign and making your adjustments, making your tweaks, and then obviously you saw a real takeoff and success, how often were you monitoring those KPIs and making those changes? And how often do you think is normal for a business to kind of look at the analytics, look at the data? Is it something that needs to be done every day, every week, every month, once a quarter? You know, how close should we be monitoring that?
Yeah, and it's different for everybody. It's different for what you're doing, but there were certain cases where I'm a very kind of thorough, data-driven person. I get my rituals. I have my coffee. I had a great dashboard that would report these analytics. I would look at them pretty much every day. That's probably a little excessive. My day wouldn't be thrown off if it wasn't what I was expecting, but I like to look at it all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you're getting those KPI measurements back, it could be very convenient for you just to check on your phone. In other situations, I'd have a consultant or a company that I was working with. They would be monitoring it day in, day out. We would have a touch point every week to discuss it, discuss adjustments, and of course, if there's any big deviations, we'd talk right away. But people can go a week, people can go a month, but regardless of how often you're measuring it, it shouldn't really impact how long you're going to stay committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
It just might allow you to be more agile and make kind of those adjustments to optimize the campaign faster
Yeah.
based off what you're getting.
So we'll get a little vulnerable for a second then, and discuss one of your least successful campaigns. Is there something that's just for whatever reason did not meet the expectation, did not perform, and why was that?
So unfortunately, there's a lot that didn't work out, that were least successful. And I was kind of reflecting on those before we got together this afternoon, and they all had one thing in common. They weren't campaigns. They were really just one and done attempts at video marketing. I'd
Mm-hmm.
place it on one website, maybe put it on YouTube, wouldn't do anything necessarily to drive traffic to it, and just kind of hope that they would work. One thing you realize pretty quick is that hope is not a strategy. So they just kind of were investments made that sat and really collected dust because I wasn't doing anything kind of in concert with or kind of corresponding activities to
Mm-hmm.
help get that video out and drive traffic or get views or whatever. Just kind of let it sit out there thinking people would see it. But there's really little things with minimal cost you can do to drive a lot of traffic to the website, which goes a lot of ways, or whatever your post is, just getting people to view it.
So I'll take a little bit of a tangent on this conversation then, because I think you've addressed an important point that isn't really considered very often. And that's the idea of this campaign and creating something that, as you have talked about, is multifaceted, multi-platform, multi-touch. If you've got a company that is maybe newer to the video idea, or they haven't had, they've been doing it and haven't had good luck in the past, how do they get started with campaign development? And you don't have to really go into the overall depth of stuff, but is there guidelines as far as number of pieces of content or length of content or how many places you post it, any just general rule of thumb that can help you create a worthwhile campaign?
Regardless of kind of what content you can have the ability to make, it all really revolves around your understanding of your product or your service, what you're trying to promote, what your customers or what folks that possibly could be your customers benefit from the service or product you're selling. where they're digesting information. And that really dictates the tactics, where you're going to put it, for how long, what mediums it's going to be on, etc. So in that planning phase, when you're setting your goals, you want to make it clear to yourself or whomever you're working with, who needs to hear it, and where can you get it in front of them at.
Do you suggest that, if a company is just starting out with this campaign mindset, that they do research and they just go out and hit it hard and go 90-0, try to knock everything out? Or do they stay with, 2 or 3, 4 different places and touch points and really make those work the best they can before expanding?
Yeah, I would. You could start slow, and again, it's all related to kind of the initial investment you're making. But really, a lot of the work should be done on a kind of consultative basis, whether it's with another business, with a friend, with family, with peers, with a consultant. Just doing your due diligence, doing your research. Again, just because it's on the internet doesn't necessarily make it truthful, and you'll get all kinds of information on the internet that might not pertain to your business. It's kind of like going to a corn growers meeting in Iowa. If I'm from North Carolina and I go to a corn growers meeting in Iowa, and I write down great notes down to the cross T's and the I's, and I just go and decide to replicate that exactly in North Carolina, it's probably not going to work. Just like if you go to some website because you Googled video marketing strategy, and it's in the Silicon Valley, and they're talking about B2B sales platforms, you probably want to click out of that pretty quick and go find something more applicable to what you're trying to do. And again, trying to learn the easy way so you don't have to learn the hard way. And you're using your money, you're managing your money, your investment as wisely as you can. Not only from the onset, but throughout the entire process as well.
Awesome. Any
But
other?
ask people, talk, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Learn the easy way.
Right. Well, any other tips or advice you have in regards to measuring and watching the analytics, getting a successful campaign? Anything else that you want to share on that topic before we close today?
No, I just think it's again, learn the easy way, not the hard way. There's a lot of folks out there that have found success through it, and if you could learn through them, it's a great opportunity. It can. I've seen it. I've. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
I have seen it be successful, and I really do believe in it. In today's world, going digital, going with videos, you can really let people know who you are and what you're about without necessarily calling door to door or onto others, and get people to buy, get people to attend, get people informed, whatever your goals are. Just follow the process. Don't go out there with your head cut off, running in circles, letting cash flow out of your wallet. Be
Right.
strategic about it. It's an investment, but it's one that could pay dividends without a doubt to your business. Period. Don't quit. Typically, unless you made something your strategy in a vacuum, you probably have something that's going to appeal to your customer base because you know them and you know what you're selling. Don't pull the reins back before you get into the short go, into the sprint. You might have to pull back and maybe think of a different play to call, but there's plenty of plays out there, and calling the right one at the right time, or the right ones at the right times, could be the difference between a really great experience that helps you meet or exceed your goals, or one that you have to go tell granddad, I guess you told me so.
Yeah. And that's a great point. You got to be in it for the long haul, and especially, marketing in general, but even, with video content, you have to be willing to connect over and over and over again, and try new things, and be willing to adapt. And if you aren't willing to go where your customer is and change that accordingly, then you're going to struggle no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and just be honest in the whole process. It's really to help you, and um, if when you can get some measurements, it'll help you be honest. But if you learn from what you find, whether it's good or bad, you can really have a whole makeover that'll bring you and your business places you've never been before, and
Mm-hmm.
and deliver real solutions and value to people that you might not have known last year.
Yeah.
So it's remember, you're competing against everything that's trying to fill the brain space of your possible customer, from social media to things going on at the house to competitors' products to who's winning the Super Bowl. You've got to get the message to them in a way that they're gonna digest it, and then you got to remind them and be top of mind if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're top of mind, that turns into long-standing relationships that are beneficial for both parties.
Awesome. Well, Chris, a lot of great information, great nuggets in that. I think a lot of points that we can really take to heart, and just be mindful of how adaptive you have to be, and how flexible a campaign needs to be, and the fact that it is multifaceted and multi-platformed, and it's never a one and done deal, or at least very seldom it is. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share the insight on measuring the success and how important that is to a marketing campaign. Thanks so much for being on here today.
Glad to do it. Thank you, Austin.
Well, folks, that puts a wrap on season 1 as we get down with episode number 7 and Chris Engel. What a way to end season number 1. What a way to capitalize on all the great content we discussed in this first season. Hopefully, if you have the chance to follow all the way through, you gain insight into how each of these steps plays a very crucial role in determining the strategy and the planning of your video marketing campaign. And I love how Chris talked about it being truly a campaign. It has to be a multifaceted approach to accomplish the success that your brand deserves. Folks, if you want to sign up for your own custom strategy workshop and implement the steps that we talked about within your business and brand, then visit backroad-productions.com/workshop. For more information about any of the stuff talked about in today's show, be sure and check out the show notes at backroad-productions.com/podcast episode number 7. Folks, thanks again so much for tuning in to this season. We look forward to coming back with you with season number 2 as we talk more about how to implement strategy within your business. Folks, we'll see you next time on the In Focus podcast.